What's going on, everyone? I've definitely been entertained by, I don't want to say entertained, maybe that's the wrong word. Because I don't like to be entertained by death and destruction, but more the emotions that have outpoured from this breakout in Israel. But I read this article, which was interesting. The Iron Dome stops about not 70%, 90% of the rockets that have been launched out of Gaza. 1,700 rockets at a 98%. It's pretty 90%. It's pretty impressive. And I think it answers the questions, what do we get out of our relationship with Israel? What do we get out of our alliance with Israel? It's a, technology sharing partnership. And you have a isolated, outnumbered country that has to rely on technology to bridge the gap. And when you have a relationship with a country like that, um, Iron Dome, the U.S. participated in its development. So you actually get real world testing of those weapons. Um, I mean, the U.S. is in hot zones all over the world, but not to the same degree. Israel is fighting constant wars. So since they were a Cold War ally and our post-Cold War ally, they're testing our weapons in the field. So it's better that we have them test our weapons than putting our soldiers out in the field to test them. You know what I mean? I think it's pretty evident this is the case. Because there's no other country that fights as many wars and is surrounded by multiple threats the way Israel is. We're not likely to face equivalent threats unless we're in a hot war zone. And in addition to facing all these threats, they're facing asymmetric fighters, which we've had a problem with in the past in Vietnam, Iraq, other places. We have some isolated bases that could really benefit from missile defense. So what they've been able to do is tremendous. At the same time, there is some vulnerabilities. So I'm just doing the math. 1,700 weapons. That would be 170 rockets have hit Israel. It still is devastating, even with the effectiveness of Iron Dome, just how much it disrupts the country and the fear, and everything else. Certainly, our relationship with Israel costs a lot. I mean, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about tensions in the Middle East and around the world needs to be taken into consideration. You know, um, every alliance and commitment across the world, we should question and take into consideration if we're doing the right thing. But I don't know. The whole situation is interesting because it gets many people riled up, especially during these outbreaks. But what tends to happen is, yeah, people get in their own silos, but it's hard to get a full understanding of the Israel Palestinian conflict without, I mean, you got to go way back in time, at least 100 years, if not more, to really get a full context of the situation. And it's kind of like the retaliation in sports, right? The ref just sees the retaliation and doesn't see what happened before, and thinks the guy who retaliated is the bad guy, even if he was unwise to retaliate. So that's the situation in Israel, which is probably the most complex geopolitical, but it's hard to understand, just like the Yugoslav situation, or even Germany and its wars, World War I and World War II, and all the geopolitics involved there. There's people that think Germany was in the right. Um, and why do they think Germany was in the right? Well, assuming they're not being dishonest, because many of those people are, they're looking at certain considerations and not taking in other considerations, or they're not looking at all the evidence or all the factors, all the facts. So I think that's what's happening with these people that are rabidly pro-Israel, or rabidly pro-Palestinian, I would say. You know, oh, the Israelis are taking their land. Like, what are the Palestinians supposed to do? They're in the right to fight back. Okay, but why have the Israelis taken land and built settlements? What about the fact that the Palestinians um, have had worse intentions than the Israelis? And so why should Israel respect their sovereignty? You know what I mean? Should they let them build a state that's going to be utilized to wage war against them? So I changed my opinion over time on Israel, which means I was wrong in the past. So I feel like I could definitely still be wrong today, but I've at least tried to get a full picture of the full situation. And it's hard to take either side, right? It's hard to say, oh, the Israelis are on stolen land, their state's illegitimate, that state shouldn't exist. And it's also difficult to do the opposite and say the Palestinians that behave badly, they don't deserve a state at this point. Um, I hope there can be some reconciliation for them and the world, but there's just too many factors. There's too many bad apples to prevent that from happening. So I don't know, but you never know what might be possible over time. You know, um, Germany reunited, the Cold War ended, but I feel like solving this Israel situation would be a different level of miracle. So I'm not going to be sitting around and waiting for it. But I'm intrigued as much as you can be over a tragic situation. What else going on? Thomas Sowell, Sewell, not the enlightened black conservative guy, but the crazy neo-Nazi guy, has been arrested in Australia for armed robbery of all things. Like, I wasn't thinking this guy was out doing armed robbery. I would have thought, hmm, he's already facing jail, and he's a open out there in public neo-Nazi. So why would he be engaging in outright illegal activity? But hey, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. It's like the people are complaining, oh, he's getting prosecuted for politics, blah blah blah. I don't know. If they arrested him and they have evidence, then there's probably something to it for sure. Just like most people who get arrested, you know. Did the cops stage a robbery? I don't even know why this guy would be out committing robberies, but I want to know why. Maybe he was trying to steal his stuff back or something. But it just seems like every time one of these guys gets arrested, the narrative is, oh, the government's cracking down for political reasons. He was a good boy. He didn't do nothing wrong, etc., etc. So I don't know. We'll see. But that guy's a fucking train wreck. Even if he did rob someone, I'm sure they'll be saying, "Oh, he did it in self-defense, like it was his property." Or there's got to be more to this story than like this guy didn't go out and just mug somebody. He doesn't seem like that type. Maybe it was a beef, and somebody took his Nazi flag, and it was like soaked in his blood, like the real blood Nazi flag. So he stole it back at gunpoint. I don't know. There's got to be something exciting to this story. I want to know what's going on. Anyway, that's all I got on my mind right now for today. Everyone have a good day.